sorry, baby. Take two, like the first hiccups never happen, and most of you guys maybe don't even know what I'm talking about for all of our replay viewers. But how's it going, everybody? It's Wardy here, and we're back at it with another live post-game edition of the Mets taking down the Toronto Blue Jays, this time in a sweeping fashion as they go on to beat Toronto by a final score here of, yes, 2-1. We're going to break down to a T what transpired in this ball game, inning by inning, innings 1 through 9, and while, yes, it was another game where it was a bit of an offensive snooze fest, a cold, frigid weekend there at Citi Field did not change the fact from a lot of Mets fans going out of their way to attend these games and for Pete Alonso to stay roaring hot, leading the way for this Mets offense. And on the pitching end, David Peterson was sharp, but he exited the game with what felt like an apparent injury. Thankfully, though, it doesn't appear that anything is too concerning on Peterson's front, and we're going to get to Carlos Mendoza's comments later on in the show here as he's actively speaking to the media right now. We're also going to get into the continued dominance from this bullpen. Max Gradick, sign me the heck up. This kid continues to dominate. Everyone else and their mother in this bullpen is getting the job done, guys. So many key takeaways to get into this series sweep for the Amazons against the Toronto Blue Jays, and shout out to the Blue Jays fans. They were talking a lot of smack leading up to this series. I don't know if it was the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. talk that bothered them going back to the offseason or what, but they were not taking kindly to Mets fans heading into this matchup on socials, and you hate to see it outside of my guy Jim at Ballcap Sports because he is the best Toronto Blue Jays fan in the game, and my guys Adam and Nick from Blue Jays Today. They're amazing, but everyone else, though, they've been acting like schmucks, so this feels good, everybody. Let me see those W's spam in the live show right here, right now. Let me see those sweeps in the chat as well. If you guys have that broom emoji there on your phone, spam it in the chat right now. The comments down below, I want to see it as well, everybody. And of course, if you're a member here, spam the W emojis that we have. And if you want to become a member, simply sign up by clicking the link down below in the description. That way you too get exclusive perks like new Mets emojis to use, shout outs from yours truly, and much more, folks. But let me actually go to this main slide, and there's a reason as to why I'm going to this main slide, but I actually need to bring this along with me. So one more second, everybody. You'll understand what I'm doing here in just a second. Let's copy this. Let's paste this over here, and we're going to let it rip with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle, baby. Let's do this thing. Shout out to my guys Greg and Jordan with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. How's it going, everybody? Come on. Like I said, break out those brooms. Let's also break out and get into what transpired in this ball game, inning by inning, everybody. Spam those W's, hit that like and subscribe button as you come in, and let's break down this ball game. But let's actually start from the top by doing a quick roll call to everyone I see in the chat right now, and then we will go on from there. Let's see, we got Eric in here, Broken Jester, great member. We got Jason, how you doing? Josh R, great member, how you doing? D-Mac, great member, how you doing? JR, great member, how are you? We got Broken Jester in here. We got Rebecca, great member. We got Sean MD, great member. JR, great member. Zach Flakerton, G Money, my man Dave Kaplitz, I know, is in here. As always, shout out to you, Dave. We got everybody in here. Your mother, Malone, Michael Massa, Kamo, how you doing? Going down the list here. Eric again. Kevin Kane with the $10 hollow states the following. Enough of Batty. It's time to give Acuna the start every day. Maybe that's what hurts the bat, not knowing when he's going to play anything is better. We better than Brett and AAA. So, okay, we're going to talk about Brett Batty. Trust me, he has had a putrid start to the season. His plate approach has been a continued problem. He has been behind in what feels like almost every single at-bat he's been in. It has been a piss-poor approach, and we're going to talk more about that because even in a limited sample size, Brett Batty has unfortunately for himself done himself no favors to try to be a mainstay for this Mets team by the time that Jeff McNeil returns from injury. We're going to get into all that, everybody. Trust me, but I want to hear from you, everybody in the chat right now. How we feeling, Demille? Longtime follower, Demille Cruz, we appreciate you. You've been in here since the start, as always. G Money, Jet Up, how you doing, guys? Let's break down this ball game because there was plenty good that came out of it. Again, not an offensive output that you were hoping for maybe over the past 24 hours, but Jesse Winker did his thing yesterday, and the Polar Bear continues to do his thing leading into this series victory, folks. And I just have to start by saying how much I continue to be jaw-dropped and beyond impressed by this Mets bullpen. We're going to further reiterate this in our video that's dropping tomorrow morning in our latest Big Mets update segment, so be on the lookout for that. Not only are we going to recap some key takeaways from the series, but also preview the upcoming one against the Marlins tomorrow and even get into key performances on the minor league end from guys like Brandon Sproat, Noah McLean, just to name a few. A lot of awesome takeaways on that I want to have in a separate discussion from doing this post-game breakdown today. But folks, instead of just breaking the game down inning by inning like we always do, we're going to do that in a second. I first just want to jump the gun right away and get into what has been a continued standout for all the best reasons imaginable, and that is the Mets on the pitching end, and that is in particular Max Kranick. And as you see here, you're going to see David Peterson's highlights of him basically going down with his apparent injury today. He tried to stay in the game that we saw there in the fifth inning or so, and then Peterson, after allowing multiple guys to get on, he unfortunately, after getting checked by Jeremy Hefner, he then drills Andres Gimenez, he then allows multiple guys to get on base still. So not ideal what you're looking for. We saw Santander get a walk, Gimenez a hit by pitch, and then that was it for Peterson today. But Max Kranick, who came in for David after Peterson looked like he might have had some side uncomfortability. Thankfully, though, I haven't seen anything reported to make me believe that it's an oblique issue right now, so that's a good thing. In the case of Max Kranick, however, he continues to look nothing short of absolutely fantastic. He has now faced 22 batters so far this season, and he has only allowed one batter get on base, and that was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in this series with a single. Outside that, he's been nails, and today from the Mets, Max Kranick went 1.1 shutty and had himself a strikeout. He, along with every reliever in this bullpen, has been looking tremendous outside of guys like Danny Young. And now, folks, after we see the Mets, who entered today's game with a bullpen allowing 5 total earned runs across 30 innings, leading into today's game. Now, after today's game, we add another 4.1 innings of work. The Mets now have 34.1 innings from their bullpen this season, in which they've allowed a total of 5 earned runs. And if you take Danny Young out of that equation, folks, it's pretty much unhittable the entire way through. That is how good it's looked outside of him and Jose Budo, which have been the only true culprits on the bullpen end so far this season. They have been absolutely nails, everybody. I want to hear from you guys. How are we feeling about not only Max Kranick continuing to look stellar so far this season, but the bullpen as a whole, including guys like Huascar Brosban, including guys like Reed Garrett, including guys like AJ Minter, who looked very solid today, giving the Mets a scroll inning with back-to-back punchies. You know, also, Max Kranick, for those that don't know, utilized the slider today 43% of the time and sat 88 with it and topped out 89. The four-seam he utilized 36% of the time and topped out 96 and sat right around 94. And the curveball that he threw 21% of the time sat 78 and, you know, was touching at absolute most 79. So Max Kranick, brilliant work from him so far this season. And I would love to hear from you, Mets fans. How are we feeling about the bullpen to begin the year? It's been nothing short of stellar, to say the least. But now let's get back over here. Let's get back to the main slide. And D-Mac, thank you so much for the $5 holla. Team ERA 1.91, now number 1 in Major League Baseball. Oh, baby, hype me up, D-Mac. Thank you so much for the stat of the day. That is what we'd love to hear because, listen, there's a lot more key takeaways on the pitching end than the offensive end that we saw in this series. It goes without saying, right? Even though we saw guys like Francisco Lindor do great things, which is having 3 consecutive games. Every single game this series, Francisco Lindor got on with a leadoff hit. In the first game and the second game, it was a leadoff double. Today, it was a single. So Lindor is starting to do his part more on the offensive end, and that's absolutely huge. And let's break down, everybody, this ball game, any mining through and through. My man Darren is in the chat, the best Mets fan you'll ever find from the UK. Darren, brother, thank you so much for the $2 haul. We appreciate that. Absolute sweet, baby. You love to see it. Hope you're good. I'm fantastic, Darren. I'm really happy to see you in here. For those that don't know Darren, he's been an OG follower on the platform. It feels like yesterday when when we first started YouTube. He was like one of our core members and one of the first people to be a part of this thing. And I really helped him birth his Mets fandom as a Mets fan living in the UK. Want an excuse to kind of get into baseball more, and I kind of helped pave him into that direction. And it's been amazing to see not only the following he's built on socials as a UK Mets fan, but ultimately how much of a diehard fan he's become. So happy to have you in here as always. But as we go on to break down this ball game, everybody, let's go ahead and let's do exactly that. We're going to start from the top there with Francisco Lindor, had himself a leadoff single. But before we got there, it started with a clean inning of work for David Peterson by inducing 3 consecutive ground ball outs on Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Anthony Santander. That is exactly how you got to start this one, baby. Love to see it. Then we see Lindor get on with a single, but sadly, Juan Soto, who was pretty much a non-factor this entire series, which goes to show how exciting things are going to be when everyone is clicking on all full cylinders, folks. Soto grounds into a double play, so no one's on base with 2 out. Alonso gets on then with a hit by pitch, and Brandon Nimmo then pops up to shortstop to Bo Bichette to end the inning. Pat W., thank you so much with the $5 Holly. He says, I'll start the W. Pitching was solid. Offense was solid, but not where it needs to be. Shout out to Hayden Sanger for out-hitting the bottom of the order. I'm glad he brought up Hayden Singer, because outside of him, the Mets haven't really had too much hitting from their 6 to 8 hitters. They're batting collectively right around $150 so far this season, and that's been in part with guys like Vientos, Batty, Acuna when they've been in there, Jose Siri, etc. Thank you so much for that donation, though, Pat. We appreciate it. And as we continue to break down what was an amazing series sweep for the Mets to kickstart their homestand, and who is spoiled that's going to be attending both, yes, we're looking at Tuesday and Wednesday's game. Yes, it's yours truly, everybody. I cannot wait to be there. I'm so amped up. Tuesday night, and then Wednesday earlier in the day, we're going to be doing post-game shows live from Citi Field, back-to-back days there, everybody. So look out for your short schmuck fan, which is me. I will be more sitting towards the apple and the outfield for game 1 on Tuesday. Game 1 that I'll be attending, rather, but it's game 2 of the series. Tuesday, I'll be more in the outfield by the apple, and then Wednesday, I will actually be in the Cadillac Club, so I'm going to be getting that fun experience. Was there during an amazing day, and that was really cool, but now to get an experience like that, to actually watch the game of Juan Soto right there, is going to be electric. So I cannot wait to do that. I cannot wait to interact with each and every one of you there at the ballpark. But as we reel back in here, we would see Andres Gimenez ground out to kickstart that we would see in the top of the second. Then Alejandro Kirk gets on with a single. Ernie Clement gets on with a walk. And then Davis Schneider thankfully is called out on strikes. And Tyler Heineman, the former Met who's actually in the organization over the past year and a half or so, he grounds out as he got the start at catcher there for the Toronto Blue Jays. As we go on to the bottom of the second, the Mets don't do anything outside of Mr. Mark Vientos. Another day with a hit. Steps in the right direction, Mark. He bobbled a ball in the beginning of the game at the hot corner, but he settled it and he was fine. He still got the out. Vientos had himself a hit today, so he has hits in back-to-back days. Baby steps in the right direction for Mark, who obviously has not been off to the start of the season that he's hoped for. Vientos ripped a single that we saw there to left. Batty struck out, and Jose Siri struck out back-to-back by Bowden Francis thereafter, and that did it for the inning. And just some context in the case of Brett Batty, everybody. I know the struggles are bad, and they're really, really bad. And shout out to my guy, James Sciano, who's been throwing out some great stats on X for me, digging them up as he's been following along with this team. And he said how now Brett Batty is actually 0-2 and 11 he has been behind 0-2 in 11 plate appearances. So Batty has been down 0-2 in more than half of his plate appearances so far this season. Yeah, that's absolutely brutal. That is not ideal to see, and Batty's plate approach has been abysmal. There's been nothing about his approach that's looked in confidence at all in similarity to what we saw in spring trading. Sadly, throughout the first week and a half of the season, I understand its context. It's the first week and a half and a limited sample size, but having said that, Batty looks completely outmatched, and he looks completely outmatched to the point where he's almost separating himself completely from everyone else. Even Vientos has still looked better than Batty for the most part, and that's saying a lot, as Mark has had a lot to be desired so far to begin the season. This is not a slight on Mark, nor is this a slight on Batty. It's just a reality. He hasn't looked good. He's done nothing to really help his cause to warrant staying on the team once McNeil gets the call-up. So unless Jeff does, in fact, get a call-up, when he does get the call-up and Batty really turns it on in the next couple weeks, everything is now looking like that Batty will be the man man sent down with Acuna staying up. It's hard to see it being otherwise right now unless he can really start to get on a roll. And I say that as someone who obviously is advocating for Batty and wants to see him succeed, but sadly, it just has not been there whatsoever so far yet again to begin the regular season. And actually, I shouldn't even say yet again. It's worse. Batty actually was better to begin the season last year. He was hitting some home runs. He was going gap to gap. He looked awesome within the first couple of weeks, and then it died off after the first 2.5 weeks of the season or so. The year before that, Batty again had his slivers of brilliance, and then it was fluctuating heavily throughout the course of the season. So in the case of Brett, I'm going to defer to you guys. What do you think is going to be best for him? Do you think that he still should be given a decent opportunity at second base, or do you think that we've already seen enough from Batty and it should warrant giving Acuna more consistent playing time against both righties and lefties, and you think that Brett needs to be sent down as soon as McNeil is back, if not sooner? Let me know in the chat right now, as well as the comments down below, everybody, and thank you kindly for continuing to smash that like and subscribe on as you chime in. Help us get a 300 plus likes at any point here watching live or on replay to over 400 live viewers. It always does mean a lot. Billy Dottie with the $2 holla. Thank you so much, Billy. He says, such a weird series. Penn is incredible again. It absolutely is. And this is, I shouldn't say a stark contrast from the start of last year, but there was concerns with the bullpen last year to begin with, and it exceeded expectations and stretches, and then it didn't look great for a bit, and then it exceeded expectations. So far this year, this bullpen, in my opinion, has not only been as advertised, where we knew the quality of depth would be there, going all the way to AAA, but more so in just how composed the guys that were the biggest question marks heading into the season, and Max Crank and Huascar Brosman especially, have looked absolutely fantastic. I have no complaints on that front, to say the least. But let's get into continue to break down this ball game, everybody, because in the top of the third, Miles Straw, we would see get on with a single there that goes back to, unfortunately, Peterson, but it deflects off of him, and there is no play. Thankfully, though, nothing else transpires in the inning, because after a 2-out walk for Anthony Santander, Andres Gimenez strikes out on an absolute sword of a swing. Gimenez did not look good at all in the series, and looked more of what I can expect Blue Jays fans to get used to throughout the course of the season, because Gimenez is not a power hitter. He was salary dumped from the Guardians to the Blue Jays in what was a backloaded contract by Cleveland, a brilliantly structured contract to dump should they have interest to do so. And while Gimenez is a solid player, I do believe that what Toronto is buying in on, they're not going to be getting the ROI at all close to what they're hoping for. And Gimenez, after a great start to the season with the power, nothing to show for it in the series for the most part, but I will give benefit of the doubt. He was just one of many hitters on both sides that really didn't hit too much of a lick this entire series in a cold, frigid Citi Field here in the first week of April. So can't blame them too much, even with them being pro ball players getting paid millions of dollars. Hayden Singer, who wishes he was getting paid millions of dollars, but now is getting a nice bonus being with the Mets, I'm sure, he gets himself on with a walk as he got the start today there at catcher, with Louis Torrens still rehabbing and still dealing with the right arm contusion that he sustained just over a day ago, was in last night's game towards the end for catching, and did have himself a single that he got on, which was awesome. But Torrens, they want to give him some rest. I'm glad that they were able to give that, and Singer helped out both defensively and offensively today. Defensively, he had a bad throw to Brett Batty at second base to try to throw out a runner that we saw, because he threw to the opposite side of where Batty needed tag there, more to his left side, but he threw to Batty's right side, right meaning his hand, but if you're looking at him, it's technically his left, and that wasn't ideal. But outside that, Singer was fine, and he got himself on base today with both a walk and a hit, so we're never going to complain about that. Billy with the $5 holla says, I've seen enough from Batty, build up his value in AAA and include him in trade package later in the season. I would not be at all surprised if that happened, and I say that as someone who has, again, been advocating for Brett to have success, but if he's not going to have success here in what is a make or break year, then yeah, you're probably going to trade him and part of a deal of something bigger by the deadline, if not certainly in the offseason. And the Mets finally got some offense going that we saw, and it all started here in the third inning, because after Lindor would strike out after the Hayden Singer walk, Juan Soto gets the Barry Bonds treatment as a surprise absolutely nobody, and you got yourself 2 on with less than 2 out for the polar bear and Pete Alonso. And what does Pete Alonso do? He does exactly what you'd hope, and he rips himself a single to left. That drives in Singer, and that gives the Mets their 1-0 lead. From there, we would see the Mets continue on with the offense as Brandon Nimmo gets in on the fun with an RBI sac fly opposite field, and just like that, the Mets are up by a pair for Jesse Winker, who unfortunately strikes out to end the inning. But Jesse gets the pass for not having a good day today at the plate after single-handedly carrying the Mets to victory yesterday. Mets get nowhere close to their win yesterday without Winker's 1 double and 2 triples, including a game-tying triple that we saw there in the 8th inning. Just an absolute dog, and against a lefty. I can't get over the resilience that we've seen from this Mets team. A further continuation of what we saw last year, which has me pretty excited as a fan. And as we go on to break down now, everybody, we saw there, as we are in the top of the 4th, the final full inning of work for David Peterson. He would give up a 1-out walk to Ernie Clement. Then we would see David Schneider thankfully ground into a double play to end it. Great turn by Vientos to Batty to Alonso, 6-4-3, and that about did it, which then leads us, folks, to the bottom of the 4th, in which the Mets went down in order. Vientos was called out on strikes. Batty flew out there to left fielder David Schneider, in which it was a soft fly out there on the breaking ball. Just did not have at all a good play approach there, sadly. And Jose Siri fly out there to Anthony Santander and right, and that did it for the inning. In the 5th, we would see Tyler Heidemann rip his first double of the season there to left, and then Miles Straw would strike out swinging, and then Bo Bichette would ground out there, and then we would see with 2 outs, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. gets on with a walk, Anthony Santander gets on with a walk, and then Andres Gimenez with the hit by pitch that we saw, which made it a 1-run ball game, and then that's where Max Kranick came into play. So I know that there were a lot of people scratching their heads as to why was David Peterson not pulled from the ball game when he first had discomfort. And my initial thought process behind this was, okay, it's a lefty-lefty matchup. Peterson feels good, and he's not concerned, and the Mets aren't overly concerned with him either. We don't know what he vocalized to him in that initial moment. Peterson is actively talking to the media right now as I'm talking to you guys too. So once we get some clips that I can share with you guys from X to S and Y, I'll do that shortly after this, after we break down the ball game. But the lefty-lefty match, actually, I apologize. It wouldn't be lefty-lefty matchup because Anthony Santander is a switch hitter, so I can't even use that as an excuse. Outside the fact of Peterson feeling well enough to do it, the Mets were trusting Peterson enough to go out and see how he would attack the next batter. And in the case of that, he unfortunately walked Anthony Santander, and then that is where it felt like it was the prime opportunity to take Peterson out of the game. I'm not exactly sure if they just didn't have Kranick fully ramped up yet or not, because they tried to drag things a bit longer. Then there was another mound visit that we saw with Jeremy Hefner going to the mound, and then eventually we saw Max Kranick come in after we would see Andres Gimenez hit by pitch, and a run came in that way to make it a 1-run ball game. So in the case of Peterson, like I said, not overly concerned. I'll see exactly what he said to the media here shortly, but certainly encouraged and not discouraged by what we were getting from him leading up to this point. I know his pitches were kind of all over the place today. He was a little bit of a wild thing that we saw in that 5th inning, but leading up to that 5th inning, he was cruising. He was pitching his game absolutely. And David Peterson's final line, folks, is 4.2 innings, a 3-hit, 1 earned run, 5 walk, 3 strikeout baseball. So it really is going to continue to come down to the walks with Peterson. We know that. And if he can keep the walks at a minimum, let's say 2 to 3 a game across 6-7 innings, no one's complaining. But 5 walks is not ideal through not even 5 innings. But again, you have to wonder how much were things really impacting him there in that 5th inning, because it was clear as day that he was uncomfortable. And the Mets are usually the team that gives you the quick pull, as a team that knows very well how many pitching injuries they sustained in recent years. So that's furthermore why I'm not necessarily scratching my head as much in regards to Carlos Mendoza and Jeremy Hefner's decision, as I am hopeful that there's nothing to really take out of it that's of seriousness, because they felt confident enough and comfortable enough to keep him in there. That's usually not something that the Mets have done with their pitching staff, and we have seen that in recent years, especially since Steve Cohen became owner. Anyways, though, without being a 1-run ball game, Max Kranick comes in for, again, you have yourself a jam, bases juiced, and it doesn't matter. Just like Max Kranick, who came in the bases loaded situation, this time in less than 2 outs against the Houston Astros, where he gets a quick pop out to Mark Vientos, makes a great snag there by third base for the first out, and then a line out there, a ground out there after or so. Tremendous job by Kranick against the Astros. And fast forward to today, he needs 1 key out for the final out, and he gets a pop out in the infield right to Hayden Senger from fellow catcher Alejandro Kirk, and that does it there for the inning. Tremendous job yet again by Max Kranick to do his Houdini magic and work out of jams. In the bottom of the 5th, we would see Hayden Senger get on with a single, his first and only hit of the day. Unfortunately, Lindor would ground into a double play shortly after, and Soto lines out to do it for the inning. In the top of the 6th, we would see Max Kranick continue to look absolutely fantastic. He gets a line out on Ernie Clement. Then we would see there, even with Alan Rodin, who comes in as the pinch hitter for David Schneider. He would ground out softly back to Kranick, and Heineman would strike out Sweeney for a nice 1-2-3 inning of work for Mad Max Kranick, or No Panic Kranick, I think is the best nickname I've heard so far. That's better than trying to give him the Mad Max label when there's only true one Mad Max, and that's a sicko and Max Scherzer. No matter how much we love him or hate him, that's always going to be his nickname outside of the movies, in my opinion. But as we get to the bottom of 6, everybody, Alonso ripped his single, his second hit of the day, and third time on base. Brandon Nimmo ripped his single as well, so the Mets have something cooking here in the bottom of 6. Winker, unfortunately, strikes out Sweeney on a pitch that was a little in. Vientos gets on with a walk, so they have bases loaded with 1 out for Chad Green, who comes in then for Bowden Francis. And as Green came in, he's the one who walked Vientos right away. Brett Batty strikes out terribly, unfortunately, and then Jose Siri flies out again, this time to center to Miles Straw, and we leave the bases loaded stranded with less than 2 outs there, where the Mets could have pounced, and that's something that really could have hurt them. They didn't have their bullpen absolutely dominating the way that it was. Thank you guys again for the donations, too. I'm going to get to that soon. Never seen so many people hate the 24th guy in the roster this much. James, are you referring to, who are we talking about, James? Are you talking about Sanger, or are we talking about someone else? Titanic Kranick? Ooh. Don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Let me know the Kranick nicknames you got. Let me know in the chat down below, everybody. Those are good. Let's see, in the top of the 7th, Reed Garrett came in, and he was an absolute bulldog. Got a key strikeout right away on Miles Garrett. Not Miles Garrett. Because I'm saying Garrett, I'm thinking Miles Garrett. On Miles Straw. Then he gets a quick round out on Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and that does it for a 1-2-3 inning of work there for Reed Garrett. And Reed Garrett, for those that don't know how he looked today, he threw an entire 7+ pitch mix, had the cutter working at 31%, sitting at 91. The sweeper, 86 miles per hour, 23% of the time. Splitty, right around 89 to 90 miles per hour, 15% of the time. Sinker, 15% of the time, in which he was right around 96 to 97. Four-seam that he threw once was 97, and the slider that he threw once was 91. When we look at the whip percentages as well, he had a 31% whiff rate against right-handed batters on the cutter, and a 23% whiff rate against right-handed batters on the sweeper. Didn't get any whiffs or anything like that against the lefties, because given the matchups that he had there. But a nice, clean inning of work there, to say the least, from Reed Garrett. Let's see. No Panic Kranick. Yeah, like I said, I do like that nickname quite a bit for Max. And as we go back and get into the final, couple innings of work here in this ball game, folks, we would see with 2 outs, Juan Soto finally does something. Soto rips himself a double, and that would have the Mets a runner on second there, and that would be, again, the only thing that Soto really does of significance outside of getting on with his fair share of walks. So love to see that from Juan, never complaining about it. So Soto gets on with a double there in the bottom of the 7th, but Alonso unfortunately flies out sharply, and that did it there for the inning, which then brings us to the 8th, where AJ Minter comes in, and Minter strikes out Anthony Santander and Andres Gimenez back-to-back, which you love to see. Kranick Mechanic, ooh, that's a good one too. Kraken Kranick, oh, you guys are getting very creative. I like this. Awesome. We got to continue the wordplay with the other Mets outside of just Max Kranick and these relievers. But with 2 outs, we would see Alejandro Kirk get a single. He ripped one to left in what was a good pitch that he turned on in. And then afterwards, we would see George Springer come in as a pinch runner, and he would go and steal second base. But it doesn't matter, as Ernie Clement would line out there to end the inning. As we then advance to the bottom of the 8th, everybody, we would see Brandon Nimmo would strike out Sweeney. Marte would strike out Sweeney coming as a pinch hitter, and Vientos would ground out, which then sets us up for the 9th inning, which we see Edwin Diaz, and of course, he drills Alan Roden right away, which I'm sure didn't feel great. Then Tyler Heineman strikes out Sweeney beautifully. We would see Nathan Luke with a line out to Nimmo. A hit by pitch to Bo Bichette allows 2 on there with 2 out, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. thankfully grounds into a force out, which ends the ball game and ends what was a pretty comfortable series sweep for the Mets, this time by a final score of 2-1. So let me go in here. Let me answer some of your comments that you guys got from me, especially on the donation front. And then I want to expand more as to what stood out so much about this series as a whole, and then we will get closer to wrapping up the show, everybody. Thank you guys for continuing to smash that like and subscribe button. It always means a lot. Also, folks, if you haven't already, check out our awesome friends at SeatGeek that have you covered with 10% off your next SeatGeek purchase, for whether it's Mets games starting this Monday Monday against the Miami Marlins, whether it's going to be games after that, after this homestand, whether it's going to be for comedy show tickets, the way that I know I have my comedy show tickets with SeatGeek there for Shane Gillis this upcoming weekend there in DC area, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm a big comedy buff for those that don't know, and I'm like trying to do the Infinity Stones of like all comedians I've had interest in and seen them at least once. I've already seen like 3, 4, 5 guys over the past year and a half, 2 years I've been happy about. Shane I've had on the list for a while. We're finally getting that done, so that'll be fun. But that's all thanks to our friends at SeatGeek, everybody. And no, I'm not bluffing. I'll actually show you guys right now in the SeatGeek app. And the best part about utilizing their app is that they have a grading scale, unlike really anything else I've seen, where they tell you how good the ticket is on a scale of 1 to 10 and its value, if it's worthwhile to purchase. And what they also do is give you a grading scale on the color coordination. So if it's green, it means it's really good. If it's red, it means it's bad, it's poor, and you probably shouldn't opt for those tickets. So as you guys can see here are my Shane Gillis tickets right in the queue for Saturday, April 2nd there at Capital One Arena. So if anyone's attending for whatever reason, I'll see you there. I'll be covering the Mets game late that day, much later in the day, because I know that they have like a midday game that day against the Athletics. I will be covering the game the night prior, though, that Friday late at night, because it's a 10 o'clock game, and I'll be doing that live, hopefully after a big Game 1 victory. But guys, check out our awesome friends at SeatGeek. Again, use the code WARDY10 for 10% off your next purchase. Link down below in the description to check out today. Pat W. with the $2 Hollow states, worried about our bullpen being overworked early. You know, Pat, I'm not at all worried about the pen being overworked early, and here's why. We have an abundance of options. Max Kranick and Huascar Brosban both still have options. That's important. Not that the Mets want to send down either guy, but knowing that the Mets actually have some flexibility within their pen, knowing if they have to send someone down for the purpose of actually having a fresh arm up, knowing you're not going to utilize a guy for, say, 3 or 4 days, makes sense to make that move and then go on from there. So you will definitely see a lot of things change throughout the course of the year with the Mets bullpen, with 2 to 3 players in particular. And the key guys that we're waiting the wings on that will return this Mets bullpen as soon as this month, if not next month, will be guys like Paul Blackburn and Daniel Nunez. In the case of Nunez, it's just about recovery, as Carlos Mendoza said pregame today on the topic of him. And in the case of Paul Blackburn, everything's looking good. He just needs to continue to get ramped up and basically go on from there. Eddie C., thank you so much for the W's as well for the $2 holla. I appreciate that a lot, my man. Oh, James, you're referring to Batty? Yeah, I know. A lot of people rag on Batty, and it goes in direct hand with them wanting to see him succeed and him not succeeding for another start to the season. I 100% agree that you shouldn't completely buy in on a player's success or lack thereof within the first week and a half, 2 weeks of the season. That's 1,000% true. Having said that, I also understand where a level of frustration comes in from fans that have been advocating for Batty, that have seen him ball out in spring training, and then you're getting a continuation of a guy that clearly looks like he cannot handle MLB pitching when he's up here. I understand both sides of the coin. What I don't understand is the unnecessariness to really rag on him more than you need to. Like, there isn't really a true reason to rag on him. Like, he's just trying to get himself established. I understand some fans get frustrated, but it's not like he's done anything to really bother us outside of just not performing the caliber that we hope. Blindbeard, thank you so much for the donation. I did see that you were at Mark and James's thing too. So you've been collecting all the Infinity Stones of Mets content creators and podcasters over the past couple months to go out and meet in person. That was really cool. Blindbeard, thank you so much for the donation. For those that don't know Blindbeard in the chat, he's been a longtime follower here on the platform. And really cool thing about him is that, yes, unfortunately, he does have a level of blindness. He can, however, see things to a degree, but when you look directly at him, he really isn't able to focus on your face. Like, everything dissipates away from what he explained to me. But he's gotten very good at playing bar-related games, whether it's pool, darts, and especially bowling. And we were at Duffy's Sports Bar in Port St. Lucie, and I did a live show there with Ballcap Sports and Stark Raving Sports, and some people, including Blindbeard and others, came out to want to bowl with us after the fact, as there's a bowling alley attached. And little did we know that the guy with the worst vision in the group was the best bowler. He throws it at least 30 miles per hour, and I'm not even joking as I say that. That's how hard he throws the ball. And he ripped an absolute strike and fell over with his first throw. Because, again, he's guided by the floor on the ground, and he's focusing more so on the following the wood paneling and where they have the little dots to set him up for his alignment than anything else. So he just his head down and absolutely lets it rip, and he tumbles over and he rips a strike. I mean, that was the most insane thing I ever saw, and he's an absolute legend for it. So Blindbeard, thank you so much again for not only being an awesome follower, but being an even better bowler, which caught us all by surprise. So much so that we had people thinking out here, there's no way he's actually blind, because he's bowling way too good. And yet, no, it wasn't the fact of if he's blind or not. He absolutely is. It's just all that much more impressive. It's absolutely insane how good he was at bowling. Jack with a $2 donation says, hope David is okay. Also, the Rizzler threw gas. He absolutely threw gas. Thank you so much for the donation. Biggest star of tonight's game, without question, is obviously the Rizzler. I didn't think I need to mention that. I thought you guys already knew that. I'm half joking. If you guys don't know the Rizzler, this is a very famous kid in the New York sports space. He's been hanging out with the Boom guys. You know, here comes the Boom. You know, that kind of stuff. We got the Boom, all that nonsense. He's been hilarious. He does this little thing that they call the Riz, where he's, you know, basically trying to give you like a meme face, if that makes sense, where he's just a big goofball, but he's hilarious, and it's impossible to dislike him. And he threw out the first pitch today, and he absolutely nailed it. So shout out to Riz. I think he actually threw out the first pitch to Max Kranick today too, which is what made it all the more better. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that was the case. But absolutely fantastic. Kranick and Stanek sound like a law firm. That sounds like a t-shirt is what that sounds like. That's what that needs to be made. 100% Kranick and Stanek. Yeah, and you have it set up like Morgan & Morgan themed. Shout out to Morgan & Morgan, previous sponsor on the platform. Professional certified. Oh, I apologize, brother. I did not mean to miss your $5 holla. Let me go up in the chat and see if I can find it. Let's see. Okay, certified. So let's see here. Yes. Okay, Ben, I didn't miss it. It's early, but let the praise be as loud as a disrespect for Stearns after all the criticism he received for the pitching staff. Batty shit Batty to China soon. That's ridiculous. Thank you so much for the donation, professional certified hater. And I agree. I 100% agree that Stearns deserves a lot of praise for how the pitching has been so far this year. Because what have people heavily criticized David Stearns for more than most? It's the pitching staff. It's the rotation stats. It's the bullpen stats. And he's built stability in both those ends, even with dealing with the injuries and the inconsistencies that the Mets have had in the past. It has been very, very impressive. I'm not complaining about that. Hold on, folks. I'm just making sure I don't miss anything because I had some things in my notes I want to share with each and every one of you. Okay, yeah, just more prospect updates. Like I said, I will definitely have for you guys in a video that's dropping early tomorrow. I just want it separate from this because the replay viewers won't appreciate the prospect report enough, and I think you guys will a lot more if it's part of a greater discussion tomorrow with a lot of other topics that we typically do. We go over a bunch of different topics that are unrelated to the game. 877 Kranick now. Can't do that. That reeks of JD Davis. JD Davis 877 runs now. We can't. Okay, I like the way you're thinking, CJ, but we got to think a little bit more outside the box. Let's see. If you or a loved one has been a victim of St. Johnson's predatory emergency practices, whoa, 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 whoa. What are we talking about, Zach Flayton? Don't hesitate to call the law offices of Stanek and Kranick and receive guaranteed compensation. Let's see. Everyone's saying Stearns is a bargain bandit. He is to a degree, but not in a way that's strapping the team. He does in a way that is what Steve Cohen hired him for, so that way he doesn't mindlessly spend left, right, and center, maybe the way that Cohen would have if he continued with Epler to a degree, you know? And Charlie Rock, great memory here. No, you're the man, my friend. Very happy to have you in here. Thank you guys again for smashing a like and subscribe button as you first chime in as we break down the latest in Mets land. As the boys came out and they certainly knew how to play in this one, folks. And just to expand a little bit more on a key takeaway, can we just once more appreciate the brilliance that was Pete Alonso? Another fantastic day for Pete at the plate. Got on base a total of 3 times, a 2 for 3 day with the RBI. Alonso is now up to a 290 average and over 1,000 OPS on the season. And if I'm not mistaken, has at least 12 RBIs on the year, but I'm going to double check right now just to see. Let's see here. He has 11 or 12. I think he has 11. Okay, so actually it was updated. Okay, so technically Alonso's had a 308 average. Oh, wait, never mind. I'm looking at the past 7 games. Disregard that. What is true, however, is the 11 RBIs, a 290 average, and over 1,000 OPS. Alonso's approach has been so night and day from the entire course of last season, and as we've said in recent content over the past couple days especially, Alonso is back to the Alonso of old, not chasing too much down and away on those sliders especially, taking his pitches up and in when need be, while also making sure that he's hammering with pitches over the heart of the plate. It felt like so many times, and Dave, I absolutely will, brother. Thank you so much again for everything that you sent my way. I cannot wait to check it out. And Dave, also let me know as well if you plan on hitting any games at Citi Field this year, so that way we can make it happen. Really looking forward to it. Rebecca, great member. Darren Rivera, great member in here as always, baby. But guys, Alonso, even with Juan Soto not doing too much to begin the year, even with Francisco Lindor hitting, we've seen as of late, but still hasn't done anything terribly too much at this point. The Mets have been relying on the polar bear. They relied on Winker yesterday, and it has been nothing short of great to see Pete looking locked in, happy, comfortable, heading for opposite field, doing all the little things that he knows that he needs to do, while also, again, spreading for all fields. I cannot get over the fact that Alonso is spraying for all fields. That is the biggest takeaway, in my opinion, out of anything else when it comes to his plate approach. It's the fact that he's going oppo. It's the fact that he's going center. It's the fact that he's hitting for power even at the end of his barrel, the way that he poked one when he hit that absolutely gorgeous opposite field home run that we saw there right at the end of the barrel. I'm loving everything from Pete Alonso so far this season. If Pete keeps this up, not only is he going to probably have a career year in RBIs, and potentially when we look at, I don't necessarily know about the average, but I would love to see that happen. But I think we're going to get a career year in many aspects by Alonso this year, which is going to make it all the much greater for what the Mets have to do next offseason and figuring out bringing Alonso back long-term or to go down an alternative route. I think right now he's setting himself up greatly. He just obviously needs to stay consistent and try to do this more throughout the course of the 162, much like what we saw him finally do as he broke out in the playoffs last year for the Mets. Give me 1 second, everybody, and then we're going to continue on with the show. Okay, folks, let's see here. We got Batty seems to be 0 for 2 every at-bat. You're not wrong, Darren. We literally just broke down the math earlier. And over half of his at-bats so far this season, Brett Batty has began 0 for 2. He has been behind on almost everything. And I wish I was exaggerating, but I'm really not. That's how bad his approach has been so far this season. Jack with the $2 hollow says, will Pete get rid of the F and LFGM when he is a dad? That's an interesting question, Jack. And I will say, as a young dad myself, I don't take the F out of the LFGM, but I also know that I'm still terribly immature. Just because I'm a father doesn't mean that I'm still not a schmuck, have a lot of learning to do as a young man. So we'll see what happens with Alonso, but I think if Pete's going to stay true to himself, he can't take the F out, but just make sure you don't get out of your way to emphasize the F anytime that he has his little boy or girl around once they're finally around, if that makes sense. But shout out again to the Alonso family as they're expecting their first of hopefully for however big or small of a family that they're going to grow. Very happy for them, as I'm beyond pumped up for Lindor's family too, with Koa, their son that was born over this past week, and everyone that is obviously having kids right now. It's a great thing to see. Nimmo, I know, is a dad as well, and I think that goes in hand with the beard too. He just looks great. I'm really happy to see the families that the players are building, but also how those families have had such a great dynamic in the organization with one another, which I feel like gets lost a bit when we have these Mets conversations. And if you guys didn't see it just a couple days ago at the Mets home opener, Alex Cohen spoke to Steve Gelbs in an exclusive interview breaking down their new lounge that they have solely for Mets-related families. And I think that's a great thing because it gives them further incentive to make sure they're hanging the games to watch their parents, but also that they have this great dynamic where they're further building bonds with fellow wives, fellow partners in general, fellow kids, all these kind of things, to have them all just in the same group, I think is a great thing, because in years past, it wasn't this tight-knit necessarily in the Mets organization with everybody, and it feels like it's a closer family and a tighter-knit group than it ever has been before, and that's, again, where the hospitality aspect, being as personable as someone like Alex Cohen has been in her role as, obviously, ownership with Steve Cohen, but mainly to be the girl that's going out of her way to be trying to impact the community in various ways, in great ways, and really giving you the the best experience at the ballpark, as well as making sure that not only do the players feel comfortable every single day that they go into work, but that the families equally feel as loved and as appreciated. That is a trickle-down effect, and those kind of things make a drastic difference, not only a player point of view of an organization like what Juan Soto has gotten so far, but also in their performance as well. The more comfortable you're going to be as a player, and the more you know that your family's treated right and they're having a great time every single time they're at the ballpark, that has to be a great feeling as a father and certainly as a player there on the field. And Jesse Winker, another great example of a dad. We saw him do his post-game presser yesterday with his daughter in his arms, and that was absolutely adorable. But before I forget, let me just get back for a second. Sean Manaea is expected to return either late May or early June. That's the earliest that he's going to return. But let me get to see what Carlos Mendoza said in his post-game presser today, because I did promise you guys what exactly was said on the David Peterson front I would play for each and every one of you. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. Okay, folks, here is from David Peterson himself talking about what happened there in the 5th inning, which is why I didn't feel so hot.
What exactly happened there?
Yeah, threw a pitch and got the ball back, and then my vision just went blurry, and vision then started to come back, and stomach turned over on me, and just felt worse with every breath I took, and just felt like I got punched in the stomach and was going to throw up, and that's when I stepped off, and then they came out and took some breaths, kind of went away, and felt like I had Jimenez in the left-on-left matchup, and then obviously hit him, and that was it.
How do you feel right now?
Feeling better. Yeah, I got some food in me when I came in, and doctor looked at me, and they're not concerned, so it's not something I've ever had, so.
So good news is that thankfully it's not oblique, it's not anything injury related. He just said that literally, and I quote, got the ball back, my vision went blurry, and stomach turned over on me. So he's feeling better now, just had some uncomfortability. We've all been there sometimes where your stomach just doesn't feel right out of anywhere, and maybe you get the kind of sweats that go down your back. They're so uncomfortable, and you feel like you almost have to hurl even though that you're not going to. I'm sure Peterson was experiencing something of similarity, so great news. That's nothing bigger than that, and hopefully that was just maybe a little bit of dehydration. Got to get that hydration up, make sure he gets a full meal in him, have a comfortable sleep, a good shower, and all that stuff, and then get ready for bed. I think that's the most important thing. Let's see here, everybody. Dehydration. Yeah, I'm thinking it's dehydration too. It's hard to feel. It's hard to imagine that it was something else. But give me one more second, folks, because I'm gonna see to make sure that I don't have anything that I want to share with you that I'm gonna forget to before we get close to wrapping this one up. Oh yeah, here I'll show you guys this without a problem. I'll probably reiterate this more in the video that'll drop tomorrow morning as well. But let's see here. Go to bookmarks. Broken gesture, Dr. Worried. You do not want me to be a doctor. Here's Max Crank's pitch profiler, by the way. For those that don't know, this is an evaluation, basically how every pitcher looks on a scale of 100. If you're above 100 per pitch, that means that you're above league average. If you're below 100 on the rating scale, that means you're below league average. So, in the case of Max Crank, his slider today actually graded out 11% below league average at 89%. However, the four-seam fastball was above league average at 105, as well as the curveball was just above league average at 104. So Kranick, again, continuing to be as advertised. He's been absolutely nails for the Mets and this bullpen. And we see, too, just by the Mets bullpen alone, with guys like Reed Garrett that you guys can see here, Max Kranick and Huascar Brosban this season, 18.1 innings, 0 earned runs, a 0.44 whip, 16 inherited runners, 0 scored. That's the most impressive thing to me. The fact that this has been numerous jams where the Mets and Brosban, Kranick, and Garrett either came into bases loaded or with at least 2 on, and this was the total outcome, everybody. 16 inherited runners, and none of them scored. And let's not forget, as I said to you guys heading into the show to begin with, the Mets have pitched at least 34.1 innings from their bullpen this season, and they've only allowed a total of 5 earned runs. You know how impressive that is? Like, that's just, like, absurd. The fact that we got a .44 whip for these guys to start the year, too, is awesome. And you know what stands out a lot to me, especially on Reed Garrett, It's a continuation, right? Reed Garrett was nails when he started the year with the Mets last year, and then when he started to fluctuate and have his issues, and went in large part because we saw Garrett be overworked a lot in tight ball games. And the Mets had a lot of tight ball games and a lot of frustrating losses in the month of April and May of last season. But Garrett making sure that he's not overworked this time around, and knowing that the Mets have an abundance of arms to choose from, both at the Major League club and the minor leagues dipping in AAA, that's going to set them up for great success to have more stability with their pen throughout the course of the year, as well as hopefully a continuation of them just being one of the better bullpens in all Major League Baseball, because they are looking fantastic right now. Pitchers are sleepwalking through Batty. I 100% agree. It sucks, but you're not wrong. Danny Young don't count. Yeah, if you take Danny Young and Jose Butto out of the equation, there's only been like one total earned run that the bullpen has given up so far this year, or maybe not even. But that's literally along the lines of what it's been so far, which is crazy to see. Let's see. Kevin Kane in the chat says, some kids can't handle New York. Batty is a poster boy for that, or just a bad baseball player anywhere. He needs a change of scenery, much like Moniak on the Phillies going to the Angels. And now Moniak has already left them because they had a stubbornness in arbitration on like $50K or so. I think he signed with the White Sox at just over $1 million. He's another former top prospect that's been a bust since then. But in conclusion, everybody, to wrap up what transpired in this Toronto Blue Jays series, the Mets outscored Toronto in this series. We saw they outscored them 10-3, looking very, very good in doing so. We also look at the amount of hits. The Mets and the Blue Jays tied for 4 hits in Game 1. In Game 2, we saw the Mets were out-hit 10-8. And in Game 3, this victory, the Mets out-hit Toronto 7-4. So it was a pretty tight series on the hitting spree, but when it came down to the selections of the hitting, the key walks, as well as, Chris Bassett probably should have faced at least one more batter or so yesterday. That could have been a difference maker for them. Instead, Toronto now is, instead of being 5-2, they are now 500 on the season, and the Mets are now 6-3 as we head into that Game 1 matchup against the, Toronto again? The Miami Marlins. And before we get out of here, folks, I have something very exciting to share, and I'm going to reiterate this in our video that'll drop tomorrow morning, so be on the lookout for it. But guys, we're back at it live tomorrow. Everybody, lock in tomorrow because I have a very busy schedule this week. I'm running out of town for multiple days in New York and then going out of town in the DC area towards the weekend. We'll still be doing our coverage, but we're going to be doing our next official WardyNYM watch-along tomorrow, live here on YouTube and live in the Playback app by going over to playback.tv/WardyNYM. In simple terms, for those that don't know what this is a revolutionary sports app that you guys can sign up by going to my link down below in the description. Just click on it, join right away. You make a free account, and all you have to do is link your MLB TV subscription, should you have one, and you will automatically be able to watch the game live in real time with your guy Wardy. You can even have the Gary, Keith, and Ron broadcast on, and you can have it on overpowering me if you just only want to hear me when I react to big things happening. You can have Gary, Keith, and Ron muted and listen to me the whole time as I ramble, showing play-by-play and just my reactions like a diehard fan, like each and every one of you throughout the course of the game. I'll be interacting with the chat constantly, as we already have over 140 members that took part in our first official watch party this past week. That was Kodai Singh and Sandy Alcantara. Sadly, the Mets lost that game, but hopefully, fingers crossed, they can get off to the right foot here to kickstart Game 1 of the series against Miami here at home, officially beginning tomorrow. And the best part, the Mets don't face Sandy Alcantara, however you pronounce his last name. As dominant as Sandy is, he was slotted to pitch today because he and the Braves had their game postponed. I should say he and the Marlins had their game postponed that we saw against the Braves today. But Sandy is on the paternity list, as he too is expecting, so congratulations to him in advance. But because of that reason, he's not going to be pitching against the Mets in this series. That's massive, and we're going to be covering the game live in the Playback app for you guys to watch it live. If you have an MLB TV subscription, chime in, having a great time. We're going to be interacting in the chat. We're going to be clipping our live reactions throughout it, and we may even bring on some of you guys to come in and share your thoughts throughout the course of the game as well. We may have a special guest, so be on the lookout for that. And this will also be simulcasted live here on YouTube. The only difference will be on YouTube, I'm only going to show the scoreboard, and it'll be live automated that way, and then it'll periodically tell you if you want to go to the Playback app, scan this QR code that'll show on the screen on YouTube for you to go ahead and do exactly that if you're lazy and don't want to click the link that I'll have available in the description down below, or that you'll see in the chat live as it's happening tomorrow night. But the show will begin right around 6:45 p.m. Eastern or so, if not sooner, folks. So be on the lookout live both in the Playback app, playback.tv/WardyNYM, as well as live on YouTube. But if you want the true in-game feel where you're watching in sync with me and all of our amazing 140 plus members live here in the Playback app, get involved there. We are doing at minimum once a week live shows there for Mets related games, and we will be expanding to multiple games a week throughout the course of the season. We're just slow rolling it now to get you guys acclimated, adjusted what to expect here, and this is something that we're going to be having a lot of fun with throughout the entire course of the season. And a really cool feature as well, folks, is that we can flip channels. So as long as you guys aren't blacked out and don't have any issues like that when you're watching, you'll actually be able to watch more than just the Mets game with me. So on commercial breaks, I can flip and go to the Phillies game or the Braves game, or a different game that we want to chime in on. And say the Mets are getting cooked, then I might just flip to a game for a little bit if you guys want to watch that instead, and then we'll hop back to the Mets. So it really is just like no different if you're watching the game at home on your television, but this time it's a true watch party setting where I'm there in a box just like this in the corner talking about everything that's transpiring throughout the game, sharing my live reaction with each and every one of you, just like what we did in the postseason last year. But last year we weren't with Playback, now we're with Playback, and we're going to have a lot of fun with them. 1200 with a $2 holla. Thank you so much for that. Says Braves tanking for the first pick. Appreciate the donation. Yeah, they're clearly tanking. You said it best, 1200. Thank you kindly for the donation. But again, thank you so much, Alberto Soto, for being a great member. I appreciate that. Shout out to my guy, Daniel Caps, great member in the chat, which says, wants to give a shout out to my wife, your wife's little cousin winning the UConn Women's National Championship. Oh, that's awesome. Shout out to your wife's cousin. That's fantastic to hear that she was a part of that run. I'm a Duke fan, so when it comes to March Madness, I don't want to talk about it at all. Yesterday still stings, to say the least, but it is what it is. Cooper Flag, I hope this isn't the end, but if it is, thank you so much for being an absolute king, the way that you were all year long for my Blue Devils. But guys and gals, that is about going to do it for our post-game show. Thank you guys again kindly for watching. Once more, check out playback.tv/WardyNYM for our live watch party tomorrow. That way, you guys, you can chime in on YouTube in the chat, and you can have fun there too, and I'll interact with you guys. But if you want the full experience, Playback is where we have you covered, and you just need an MLB TV subscription. It's all you need. If you have it, you're set. And if you don't, that's fine. Just chime in the YouTube live show. Regardless, we're going to have a lot of fun. That'll be the second form of 3 forms of content tomorrow. We will have a video dropping right around 10 a.m. sharp, barring changes, for our latest Big Mets updates video. Then we will have the watch party throughout the entire course of the game, and then right towards the end of the game, we'll wrap up the watch party and go right into our post-game coverage and a separate live show. So until then, folks, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And this is your guy.